Welcome to Season 2 of the Therapist to Millions podcast, where we get under the skin and into the brains of leading therapists and coaches from around the globe to find out what makes them tick and how they are helping those on the front lines of mental health around the world. Hello and welcome to the Therapist to Millions, the weekly podcast where we get under the skin and into the brains of the leading therapists from around the world. And today, all the way from the US of A in Florida, we have Margarita Donies, who is a trauma therapist with a mission to help people learn how to live a fulfilling life post-trauma. She believes in a restorative approach with a combination of mind and body healing. She describes herself as a helper, a rescuer, and a restorer, having endured some of her own traumas, which is how her practice, the National Therapeutic Alliance, was born. Margarita, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Damien. How are you?
Very, very well. So tell me a little bit about, you don't obviously have to go into your own trauma, but tell us a bit about your story, but how you, the types of therapy that you practice and how it evolved.
Yeah. So I think everything really started when I was younger, about in my teen years, growing up in a home where, there was lots of love, but there was always a mal-definition of love. Like love meant pain and suffering and a lot of arguing. There was a lot of anxiety. For those who are knowledgeable of this, I was always in fight or flight growing up. And so around 13 to 15, I started realizing that I was pretty good at conflict resolution. And fortunately and unfortunately, it was just being in the middle of arguments that I probably shouldn't have been in. But I started to kind of turn that into the fact that I had a skill. And so even as a teen, I would journal, all these things we tell our clients to do today. I was doing them, like a diary, but it worked, and then once I started to get into college, I realized that there was a part of me that said I could help people get better, right? Or restore relationships or, heal from, go from pain and turn that into something, of importance, of significance, versus just living in the pain. I was in my own journey to make sure that despite what I had experienced, that wasn't going to be the events that defined me. Like I always knew I had to get past it. There was a part of me that said, I don't want to stay here. I don't want to repeat it. And so when I put together NTA as the short version for National Therapeutic Alliance, I really wanted to niche in a place where it was geared towards helping people live fully post-trauma or post whatever issues or wounds they had acquired.
So what type of modalities do you use in your practice?
So we use, so now it's myself and two other therapists. I do have to say we're expanding. And so there's CBT is cognitive behavioral therapy is primarily there. We do tap into psychoanalytic every once in a while. We do talk about that inner child, and we talk about, whether it's, the way we grew up and how that has formed us. We also tap into techniques like mindfulness, and solution-focused therapy is really good depending on the client. Definitely, there is a touch of reality therapy. It's not for everyone. Not every trauma client is going to, appreciate that. But there are some folks that have done their own work. By the time they come in, we're more of a next step, not the starting point. So that does seem to do a lot of goodness there. And I always relate us to like the Carl Rogers approach. There's a lot of client-centered in there. But at the same time, there's a little bit of Ellis and confrontation. So I think we're just a good mix of a little bit of softness with like the tough love that you need to kind of get through challenges.
I love it. And do the other therapists in the practice have different skills, or do they have different types of modalities, or are we using the same ones?
So the modalities, we kind of are all the same. However, we do differentiate in our populations. So for example, I focus on adults. So basically like 18 to about 50-ish. And then other therapists see children or teens, or they do see older folks like 65 and above. So there's another therapist I'm looking to bring in. She specializes in family. So we really want it to be like, we want to have all areas met by the people who love to work in those areas. So when you get a therapist, it's not just someone trying to do all things, but rather people who really love that particular niche.
Love that. So let's talk about practice expansion for a moment, because we get it a lot when people fill in our questionnaires about the biggest problems they're facing.
Mm-hmm.
What is the biggest problem you're facing in terms of the practice expansion at the moment specifically?
So finding people for me, and maybe this is just my experience, it's not the issue. I have plenty of contacts. I do network a lot, so I know a lot of therapists aren't fond of that part, right? Like getting out, going to events, putting your name out there, getting on Instagram lives or doing anything like that. What I feel could be challenging is that not everyone has the same drive as the owner of the company. And I think that happens to any entrepreneur.
Yeah.
However, here, it's a little different. It's like, guys, you're not employees. I mean, you're contractors. You're building your own clientele. And the thing is, you want people that want to work in your brand, but aren't necessarily either looking to build their own, or number two, they're not there yet where they would launch. So in my world, it's like our two therapists, I know they eventually want to go into their own private practice. But while they're here, we're growing together, right? And for me, it's not even like they'll ever leave me. We'll figure out how we're going to collaborate when they do establish. Um, but it's challenging because I know they're not going to be around forever. I don't tend to attract folks who just are okay with staying still.
Yeah.
So that might be a thing I have to endure with time.
Okay, let's go to the other sort of part of the issues that we hear quite a lot, which is about burnout. So how do you look after your own mental health and well-being, and also, the other therapists in your practice? How do they do it?
Okay, so I'm going to go back to the topic of niche because I think this used to happen to me. I've been in the field for 12 years. So when I first started and I was an intern, then a fully licensed therapist, I worked in the community a lot. And when you work in community mental health centers, at least here in the US, you don't really get a choice as to who you see. You're there, you're licensed. And so as you're licensed, let's say for me, a licensed mental health counselor is pretty broad. So you can either have a client with, bipolar, or you can have a schizophrenia, or you can just have relationship issues walk through the door. Mm-hmm. When therapists don't niche or get specific as to what they really, the population or the diagnoses that they like to work with, they do burn out quicker because we're not as inspired. Like, for example, I'm not as inspired to work with a client who just suffers from eating disorders as opposed to someone who's been through major trauma. And that could be the opposite for someone else. No one wants to see a trauma, but they'd rather see just couples. So one of the ways that I narrowed that down was to really get specific. Like, who's my specific client? Trauma related. These are the things you're going through. And I have like four specific categories that my clients fall into, like anxiety, depression, PTSD, or relationship or life issues. That's it. And I know that when I walk into a session, I'm good. Like, all these areas are something that I thrive to want to work in. But I don't see a lot of, sometimes therapists don't do that, and for many reasons. It could be money. It doesn't always pay.
Yep.
So you gotta take whatever. But I really worked on making sure I attract the clients that I'm going to excel at. Because if I excel, they do better. And I'm more excited because I do better. So everybody wins.
I love that. It's a really good take on the question, actually. Let's just talk about those success stories for a minute. Give us an example without identifying factors or only using hypotheticals of a really good success story.
Yeah, actually, I just got a journal entry from someone yesterday, so I'm just going to use this client's example. And she gave me permission to publish it and everything, so I did put a story up. I've been working with her since 2020. And when we started, she came in, there is trauma there. And the cool part about her story is that she really wasn't trusting with not just with me, with anyone, or with even herself, to tapping into some of the deeper parts of that particular incident. And so over time, to make a long story short, we have been able to get her back to where she's able to tap into the depths of the issues, the emotions of that time, to then still be able to sit with those emotions And yesterday, she wrote about them again. She even wrote to her spouse about it. Like there's just things she would have never done and been so vulnerable. And so I feel like when you're in that right place where for me, it's like it's the restoration. It's let's put the pieces together. You've got some shattered pieces, and I come in and I'm like I get excited about putting the puzzle back together. So I feel like now this is like it's like for her and for me, like there's all of her that she gets to experience without the flashbacks or panic attacks, without any of that. And then we still get to rewrite the narrative. We get to just be there. But like she said in one of her lines was like, I can be in my depths without drowning or something like that.
Oh, I love that. That's
And
powerful.
I like highlighted, I'm like, it's such a pretty part. I love that.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned networking, you mentioned Instagram
Mhm.
and lives. What's your most successful technique to grow your business?
Word of mouth. I think that the traditional way, it's maybe not what a lot of people, are looking to do. But I mean, I network online. I did it through the pandemic. There was not one meeting I wasn't in. But I do go to female and co-ed events monthly. One of my mentors, actually, it's her brand. That's what she does. And so I make sure that I'm there at that, yeah, dinner table or event because new people are there. You just need to, maybe it's a referral. I'm not necessarily getting clients at these things, but I'm getting a referral or I'm collaborating with another professional that's looking for a trauma therapist or a salon owner is like, I can't pay insurance for my clients, but I could, make a contract with you so that you could be at least mental health services that I provide for them. We make that contract, I refer them to you. And for me, her, it looks like she's providing some level of health care. For me, it looks like just a steady income on a flat rate, you know, contract. So I do well at the face to face. But I mean, Zoom works too. There's a
Mhm.
lot of online events, but that's been my best
Love it.
result.
Excellent. Okay, let's talk about another marketing technique for a minute. Writing a book. Have you thought about it?
Oh, but yes, I have. So in July, there is a published work of it's 33 authors. It's a collaboration.
Nice.
So that is already scheduled to come out. I'm bilingual, so I do have a Spanish book pending. And as I was preparing for the publishing in June or July, I worked with, I don't know what his title is, but he helps people write books. So we sit there and he hears me, they transcribe it, it gives it back to me. I don't know, I forget what his title is, but he was like, "You've got the content for a book." Because I literally sat there and gave 10 different chapters, like different sections, although I was only writing one. And he said, "It sounds like you have the structure for a book." So, oh yeah, that's definitely in the list of goals.
I love that. What's the title of the book that's coming out where you've collaborated?
The power of one.
Nice.
The power of one. It's not psychology. It's oracle cards and messages for
Oh, wow.
people, messages of healing. So we all get to share our own story. Mine is the story of how I came to love myself. So in that we all have avatars, and so I have the goddess of self-love, and the goal is to share with others, the story, but how you got there, so they can also, if it relates, they can apply it, they can learn and grow, and they can also have that message shared with them. In my case, that you're worthy of love.
I love that. Now, talking about books, what's your favorite therapy book and why?
So it's not a traditional book, and it's sitting behind me. It's the yellow one. Personality is not permanent. Um, and I really think so. I love it because it's one of the things that people say all the time, or I'm just the way I am. This is just the way it is. And I forget his name because I suck at names. But the psychologist on the book, he was saying, and he did studies on how that's not true. That there's evidence on how malleable we truly are if we, implement the steps. If we, get a new regimen, obviously we need to be, coached or go to therapy for it. move past our traumas, whatever that is. But you're not stuck. It's not like you have to just stay as you are. You can evolve.
I love that. Now, what are your plans for expansion? Are you going to get more therapists into the practice?
Good question. Great question. So there's 2 therapists now. Yes, what I do want maybe 1 or 2 more as we expand into all areas of populations and trauma. But expansion for me also looks like a program that I'm working on for trauma survivors. It's called the Reclaiming, and it's for women 25 to 45 who are looking to reclaim self-identity post-trauma. So that's one thing. I do have a mission for a merch line, which is going to be called Win with Love. And it's a reminder to trauma survivors to love themselves. Because often that's huge with trauma. We lose identity and we lose a sense of worth. What else? I mean, I have those things, and I do have consulting that I do. So expansion also means diversity in services and public speaking, just different ways to reach more audiences and still creating the healing.
Podcast? You think you're doing a podcast?
So I have it on hold. I have a channel. I have a channel on YouTube. It's called Win with Love Podcast because I was just running with that brand. And some things occurred that needed to, I needed to go back to the drawing board, staff, and different things. And so, yes, it's there. And I definitely want to start it up again, in the near future, about 6 months or so.
Fantastic. And finally, tell us a fact that blows our mind, or tell us a joke that's one of a kind to win 3 months free membership to the Therapist to Millions. Which is it going to be?
What do you mean? A joke or what?
A joke or a fact that blows our minds?
Okay, I can't joke. I mean, I can joke, but it's not going to happen like the way you're probably looking for it. So that's not a good one. A fact that blows your mind. Yeah. Okay. I mean, it sounds a little nerdy, but here we go. So, did you know that if you don't incorporate mind and body, and for those who believe, incorporating the spirit, you're not going to fully heal trauma? You're not going to do it just through talk therapy. You're not going to do it just by medication. There is a collaboration. There's it's a formula where you need to work on everything to really restore the being and not be repeating those patterns or generational traumas. So it's a collective work on everything that makes up the human person, the human being.
Wow, I love that.
And so if we just try to tackle it one way, you're not going to you might get results, but it's not as long lasting.
And is that energy work specifically on the body?
So so it's a mix. So if we're going to think of all things, mind, body, soul, then yes, there is work on the energy. There's work on, for those who practice or believe in that, theta healing, or anything that really taps into, again, the little girl and you, little boy and you do a little bit of a regression there, hypnotherapy, meditations, we can't just sit here and say, I'm going to, in my opinion and in my experience, just some breath work, just an antidepressant, it's about bringing it all together, because when we get the body in sync and we get the body to de-escalate, to be in a state of relaxation where it can actually be present without the anxieties or other emotions that trauma brings up, then we can actually see what's there. If the body is regulated, the mind can think clearer. And if the mind can think clearer, then we're not just sitting in emotion. Now we're sitting in logic. And logic is going to get you to that next step. And if we're thinking about the energetic work and what we're putting out there, then you're not just doing it 1 or 2 ways. Now you're transforming even how you walk in the room makes a difference. Your business will have a difference, friendships, everything. So in my opinion and in my work, when we don't incorporate all 3, it's kind of like you're missing something. You'll have results, but I feel like there's more of a transformation when we do all 3.
Wow, that's really, really powerful. Thanks for that. And 3 months
Welcome.
free membership is on the way to you. I'll send you the code. And finally, how can people get hold of you?
Sure. So the name is the same everywhere you go. So Instagram, Facebook, it's National Therapeutic Alliance. Our email is info@National Therapeutic Alliance. And if you want to reach us via phone, we do have a text line. It's, I guess for you guys, area code. So it's a +1 954. Yep, 570-1332.
Wowzers. No, that's
So we have our
fantastic.
website.
Oh, yeah.
And the website is the same. So.
Yeah. Okay, well, I will put all of those links in the show notes together with your Instagram, website, LinkedIn as well. We can put that in there, and YouTube too.
Yes, although LinkedIn's going to say my name, not necessarily. It'll say National Therapeutic, but it'll be my name prior.
Okay, fantastic. We'll put all those in there, and also a link to the book as well. I'll find who the author is, and we'll put the link to that as well. Margarita, thank you so much for taking the time to share your knowledge and some fantastic advice at the end there about the holistic approach to dealing with trauma as well. Love that. Absolutely love that. And thank you so much for continuing to be on the front lines of mental health and everything you do.
Thank you so much, Damien. It was a pleasure meeting you, and thank you for bringing me on.
If you would like to take part as a guest on the Therapist to Millions podcast, simply email me, damien@therapisttomillions.com. That's Damien with 2 A's, as all of the guests on the show will get 3 months free access to our Therapist to Millions membership worth $300. So if you would like to know how to write a best-selling book, secure a TEDx talk, create membership sites with content you don't even have to create, build client acquisition funnels, effective lead magnets, or your very own podcast, and way more besides, why not head over to thetherapisttomillions.com and join our community of like-minded professionals? And if you'd like an additional $20 off your membership, simply type in the coupon code PODCASTLISTENER at the checkout.